Good afternoon, friends. We're glad that you're here with us on this midweek word of encouragement. Over the last couple of weeks that we were together, Pastor Ken came and he talked about the election in November and our response to it as followers of Jesus Christ, how we should be talking and thinking about it. And then prior to that, we were talking about the Lord's Prayer, Jesus' teaching or his pattern of prayer that he gave his disciples in response to the request, Lord, teach us to pray. And we're going to return to that after the first of the year. But I thought during this Christmas season, during this month of December, it would be good for us to maybe kind of center our thoughts and prepare our hearts and our minds on the coming of Jesus Christ, the birth of Jesus as a babe in the manger. Now, in a lot of churches, and a lot of Christian traditions, they do this by celebrating Advent. Now, the word Advent means coming or arrival, and it's a season of expectation and hope. In more liturgical churches, and maybe some of you have come from that background, you're familiar with the wreaths and the lighting of the candles and what each candle represents. Now here at Rockaway Assembly of God, as many of you know, we're not all that liturgical, but over the past few years, we've added the concept of Advent to our services. We use a table, as you can see here, instead of a wreath, but we do light the candles, and they do represent certain things. Each candle represents either hope or faith or joy or peace, and the fifth candle, that candle that's lit on Christmas Eve, represents light and purity. Now, as Pastor Jan pointed out in her message this past Sunday, Israel, when Jesus was born, was in a pattern of waiting. They were celebrating in one way or observing in some form or fashion the idea of what today we would call Advent. They were waiting for the coming of the Messiah. They were praying for the Messiah to come and deliver them from the hated Romans, to reestablish Israel as a mighty nation, to restore the throne of David. They were looking with anticipation for hundreds of years for the Messiah to come. Listen to these words from Isaiah chapter 9, verses 6 through 7. You've heard them, I'm sure, around the Christmas season. It says this, "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, and establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. And the zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this." You know, in some ways, the church today is also waiting. We're also waiting for the second coming of the Messiah. We're looking forward with anticipation to when Jesus Christ will come again as King of Kings and Lord of the Lords and establish his eternal kingdom in this world. He will defeat evil. He will vanquish death, hell, and the grave. So I thought that during this season of Advent, as we prepare our hearts in looking forward to celebrating Christ's birth, that we should also be looking forward to Jesus' second coming. Our blessed hope, as Paul calls it in his letter to Titus. That time when the Son of God will come back for his people and establish his throne and reign as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So over the next 5 Wednesdays, I would like for us to journey through this season of Advent with an emphasis on our anticipation of the return of Jesus Christ. Now the first candle that is lit, usually on the Sunday after Thanksgiving, it symbolizes hope and is called the prophet's candle. The prophets of the Old Testament, all of them, were anticipating the coming of the Messiah. And as we just read, Isaiah was chief in that anticipation and that hope. And today we too, the church, looks forward to Jesus' coming again. Listen to these words of hope that we find throughout the scriptures. In John chapter 14, Jesus says to his disciples just shortly before he is crucified, "I'm going to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that where I am, you may be also always." In Acts chapter 1, shortly after Jesus is taken up into heaven, ascends into heaven, the angels appear and they say, "Men of Galilee, why do you stand here looking into the heavens? This same Jesus has been taken from you into heaven, will come back in the same way as you've seen him go." Jesus himself taught in Matthew chapter 16, he says, "For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory and with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to his deeds." These are words of hope for the church of Jesus Christ, for his people, the very people of God. So let me ask you, what do you think the words of hope mean for us in this last month of 2020, these very challenging times that we live in? I believe there are a couple of things I'd like to draw our attention to. First off, God keeps his promises. Let me say that again. God keeps his promises. He promised the nation of Israel that there would be a Messiah. And we believe the scriptures teach us that the Messiah came as a babe in the manger in the personage of Jesus Christ, the very living Son of God. Now, many in Jesus' day misunderstood that, but that didn't change the fact that God kept his promise to the nation of Israel to send them a Messiah that would not only redeem them, but all of mankind. Therefore, we can have confidence in the promises of God about the second coming of Jesus Christ. That God is going to keep his promise that the Messiah is going to come again one day to redeem us who've put our faith and our confidence in him. And we should look forward to that day with great anticipation. And the second thing I'd like to draw our attention to and have us think about for a moment is that Jesus is coming. Jesus taught his disciples that no man knows the time, the date, or the hour of his return. That we should always be prepared for that event. The scriptures have in many places teachings and prophecies that tell us certain signs that would herald the coming of Jesus Christ. Certain warning signs that should alert us that that time is near. And I have to tell you, I wonder if some of the things that we've experienced over the last number of years have not been the fulfillment of some of those signs. We should be ready, my friends. Jesus is coming soon. We should be on the alert. And because we are on the alert, we should begin to expect with hope and joy that return of Jesus Christ. We should begin to share that good news with others, that they would be prepared for Jesus Christ when he returns. He's coming soon. Jesus told his disciples that when we see these signs, we should lift up our heads. We should be prepared with joy, for our redemption is drawing nigh. So as we go into this season of Advent, and we go in with hope knowing that Jesus Christ was born in a manger to bring the grace and love of Christ and the love of God to us, we also have the same hope that he's coming again to take us to be with him forevermore. See you next Wednesday, church.